Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum student. This is your chemistry teacher Farzana Nazir. Today we are going to continue chapter 4, structures of molecules. Today we are going to study about the difference between intramolecular forces and intermolecular forces. We are going to study about polar and non-polar covalent molecules. We will also study different types of intermolecular forces which can be present between different covalent molecules such as dipole-dipole forces and hydrogen bonding. After learning this topic, you students will be able to differentiate between intramolecular forces and intermolecular forces. They can easily distinguish between polar and non-polar covalent molecules. They can easily explain the dipole-dipole forces and hydrogen bonding. Student, now let us start our today's lecture, that is about intramolecular forces and intermolecular forces. First of all, intramolecular forces. Intramolecular forces are the forces that occur within a molecule. Examples of intramolecular forces are ionic bond and covalent bond. For example, in water, oxygen and hydrogen atoms are held together by a force known as covalent bond. In this molecule, hydrogen and oxygen share its electrons. Another example of intermolecular force is of sodium chloride. In sodium chloride, sodium ions and chloride ions are held together by a bond that is known as ionic bond. Similarly, in HCl, hydrogen and chlorine, they share their electron and a covalent bond is formed between the hydrogen and chlorine atom. Such type of forces which are present within a molecule are called intramolecular forces. Another type of forces which are present in molecules are called intermolecular forces. Intermolecular forces are the forces that occur between the molecules. Examples of intermolecular forces are dipole-dipole forces and hydrogen bonding. Example of intermolecular force is water molecules. In water molecules, oxygen of one molecule is held together with hydrogen of another molecule. This is due to the polarity on the molecules. Another example is of HCl. In hydrogen chloride molecules, chloride ion, which is partially negative charge of one molecule, is weakly attracted to the partial positive end of another molecule. In such way, a weak force is developed between the molecules, and this force is called intermolecular forces. Before going into further detail of intermolecular forces, first let us see what are the polar molecules and how polar bonds are formed. When two different atoms share electron pairs, both the atoms exert different force on the shared electron pair. More electronegative atom pulls shared electron pair with a greater force than the other. So, more electronegative atom partially draws electron density towards itself, as you can see in the example of water molecule. This makes it partially negatively charged and other atom partially positively charged. Such a compound are called polar covalent molecules. Now here in the first example, water, electron pair is more closer to oxygen than hydrogen. So as a result, since the electronegativity of oxygen is greater than hydrogen, therefore electron pair is more closer to oxygen than hydrogen. As a result, partial negative charge appears on oxygen and partial positive charge on hydrogen. If we see the bonding in the water molecules, you can see that two molecules of water, they are bonded to each other due to the polarity difference. Another example is of HCl. Hydrogen and chlorine, they are partially positively and partially negatively charged respectively due to the unequal distribution of electron pair. As a result, polarity arises and partial negative end of one HCl molecule attracts towards the partial positive end of the other molecule. Now the next slide is about polar versus non-polar covalent compounds. Non-polar covalent bonds, they are always formed between two atoms with similar electronegativity. Means when non-polar covalent bonds are formed when atoms are similar, whereas polar covalent bonds are formed between two atoms with moderate difference in electricity. Means the electrons are shared between two different atoms. Second point of difference is that electrons are shared equally between the two, whereas in polar covalent bonds electrons are not shared equally. In non-polar molecules, nuclei from one atom are attracting the electrons with equal force. On the other hand, polar covalent molecules, the electron pair is not equally attracted. One molecule attracts lone pair more towards itself than the other. As a result, the atoms with higher electronegativity will be slightly negative and other will be slightly positive. Students, now let us study intermolecular forces in detail. We are going to study dipole-dipole forces and hydrogen bonding. Now, what are dipole-dipole forces? Dipole-dipole forces are formed when slightly negative end of a polar molecule is weakly attached to slightly positive end of other molecule. Here is an example of HCl. You know HCl is a polar molecule. Due to unequal distribution of electrons or due to strong electronegativity of chlorine, electron pair is more closer to chlorine than of hydrogen. As a result, partial negative charge appears on chlorine and partial positive charge appears on hydrogen. When two or more HCl molecules come closer to each other, a weak force of attraction is developed between partially negative end of one molecule and partially positive end of other molecule. Such type of bondings are called dipole-dipole forces. These forces are not specific, they can be present in any type of covalent compounds. Now the next type of intermolecular forces is hydrogen bonding. The interaction of highly electron deficient hydrogen and lone pair on a nearby highly electronegative atom such as nitrogen, oxygen or fluorine is called hydrogen bond. This hydrogen bonding is present in specific type of molecules when hydrogen is either bonded to oxygen of other molecule or hydrogen of one molecule is bonded to fluorine of other molecule, or in such cases in which hydrogen is bonded to nitrogen of other molecule. Now, molecules in which hydrogen is covalently bonded to a very electron negative atom such as oxygen, nitrogen and fluorine are also weakly bonded to a lone pair of electron of another molecule. Here you can see an example of water molecules. In this diagram you can see that hydrogen of one molecule of water is attracted towards the oxygen, which is partially negatively charged, by a force called hydrogen bonding. This intermolecular forces is called hydrogen bonding. Oxygen, nitrogen and fluorine make hydrogen very electron deficient. Thus, interaction of such a highly electron deficient hydrogen and lone pair on the nearby electronegative atom compensate for the deficiency, as you can see in the diagrams. Students, here are some structures of polar covalent compounds. Can you guess the chemical structures having double forces or hydrogen bonding? Now, after going through the above topics in detail, you can easily figure it out that if the bond is between hydrogen of one molecule and oxygen, nitrogen, fluorine of another molecule, such interaction will be called hydrogen bonding. And the interaction between other than these molecules is called dipole force. Students, after going through all the details of intermolecular forces, a question may arise in your mind that what is the importance of the intermolecular forces in our daily life? These intermolecular forces are very important in determining the properties of water, biological molecules such as protein, DNA, and synthetic materials such as glue, paints, and resin. The adhesive action of paints and dyes is developed due to the hydrogen bonding. Synthetic resins bind two surfaces by hydrogen bonding or dipole interaction. And the most important is that solubility of different ionic and polar covalent compounds in water is due to hydrogen bonding.